A few words can literally be the difference between you multiplying your wealth or watching it all disappear. Advertisement has been a way for businesses to make money for a long time. TV, radio, billboards. The barrier to entry with running ads is way more accessible than it ever has been. This video is going to show you how to write clear marketing message that not only attracts your ideal client, but more importantly, repel all the broke and lazy leads. My name's Chris. At the time of this recording, I've done 7 figgies selling my own coaching online, including in the musician space. So if I can sell to broke musicians, you can be successful in your industry. The first really vital part you want to have before starting to write your ads is making sure that you're speaking to a specific type of person about a specific problem. There's an old saying, the riches are in the niches, meaning that there's a lot of money that can be made if you narrow in and speak to a specific market. The biggest mistake and fear that everyone has is that they don't want to alienate everyone that they can help, meaning that what they do could help this person, their grandma, their dog, their cat, their bird. It might be true, but if you don't choose one of those, your message becomes extremely diluted because each of those groups have different scenarios and different problems. You can't make one statement that covers your entire base. It's the difference between having a one-on-one conversation versus having a conference full of people or speaking to a large crowd. So the wider the net that you cast, meaning the more people you're trying to attract, the more shallow the message becomes. And I'm not saying there isn't a point in your business where you can reach a wider audience, but I believe that there's seasons in your business where you can do that. Sometimes people start a business and they feel like they can cast a wide net, but I don't think that's a good strategic move. The reason is when you start a business or you're in an earlier phase, you have less resources, money, time, knowledge. If you've been in business for years and you have millions of dollars in the bank, you have more of the money to be able to put your ads in front of more eyeballs so that you can get more chances. But if you're limited on money, don't you think that you should use that money as strategically as possible? If I put a dartboard in front of you and gave you 5 darts, where would you aim every single time? I'm assuming the bullseye because that gives you the most points. That's if you had 5 darts. It's just like having limited money. But let's say you finally filled up that bullseye. There's no more place for any dart to go in that bullseye. Where would you aim? Just outside of that ring. Then outside of that, then outside of that, and you continually expand until you cover as much of the board as possible. But if you start off with 5 darts, why would you aim in this corner or anywhere besides the bullseye? That's how you should look at your ad spend and your marketing dollars. If you had limited money, narrow in, find the audience that would be perfect for what you have. Once you've helped enough of them and you've made enough money, that's where you can take the money you've made and slowly start expanding to a wider market and a wider market and a wider market. As an example, I did this as well. I used to help music producers alone. I made money there, so then I started helping musicians as a whole. I helped enough musicians where I started helping creatives like dancers, photographers, etc. And then I started helping mentors and coaches as a whole. Start narrow, gain more money and resources, then you can take those resources and start expanding outward. I also say pick a specific person and a specific problem. Now, these two combinations, depending on what you put together, can change the value of your offer. I'm going to use weight loss as an example. The problem is helping them lose weight. If I took that offer to a CrossFit person versus an obese person, it's going to be a different value for each of those groups. A CrossFit person might lose 5 pounds and they may look a little bit better, so it's like, that'd be cool to have. But it's not as detrimental as weight loss to an obese person who needs to lose 50, 70 pounds. It could be the difference between them living to see their kids grow up or having a heart attack and dying. That sounds extremely morbid, but what is at stake is higher for the obese person than the CrossFit athlete. Meaning that the solution to the same problem, but for a different person, can increase the value of what you offer. Before we move on to the second really important point, make sure you subscribe to this channel if this was helpful. The second thing we need to talk about is the hook. The hook in your ad can be visual, through audio, or through your messaging. This is the most crucial part, and 80% of your effort in an ad should go to the first 10 seconds of your video. A good resource for studying hooks is if you look at any book and you take that book and you turn it around, there's a 1-paragraph description of the overview of the entire 300, 400, 500 pages. So before the person even buys the book and reads those 500 pages, they first have to be hooked into wanting to read it. It needs to intrigue them enough, and they only have 1 paragraph to make that happen. You can study that, and this is how I want you to think about your hook. Your video can be 60 seconds long, and the other 50 seconds don't matter if you don't nail the first 10 seconds. What I do is constantly test different intros. So if I take that same 60-second video, I will create 10 different variations of the first 10 seconds and then use the same 50 seconds through all those variations. So that I know that the only thing that made the biggest difference is the first 10 seconds of the video, and I can identify which hook worked the best. I would then take the budget and pour all the money into that variation of the hook. Things you can do in your hook is label your audience with the identity that they give themselves. And I say identity of what they give themselves, not what you make up for them. If you're trying to reach a lead guitarist that plays in a metal band, you don't call them a music creative. You call them a lead guitarist. Reason is because whatever they identify as is what perks their ears up when they hear it. Have you ever had your name yelled at you from across the building and you were just mindlessly walking through the hallway, but you heard your name and your ears were like, who is that? Who said my name? Whenever we hear our own identity, that's what grabs our attention immediately, and that's why you want to label them in your intro. So once you label them, talk about a relatable problem that your ideal client understands, and you can do this also by creating an open loop through curiosity. Curiosity works really well as a hook, and that's because the human brain hates when something sparks their curiosity and it goes unresolved, which means it's going to increase your likelihood of getting them to stick around so that they can resolve that curiosity. Something you can study is some of your favorite shows. If you look at the ending of every last episode in the last season, there's always an open loop or some kind of cliffhanger that makes you want to come back and continue watching that series. Study those, see why it drives people so crazy to know what's next. As a bonus, something you want to avoid is just talking about massive dreams that everybody wants to in your hook. Reason being is because that attracts dreamers, even the ones that aren't putting in the effort towards making that dream happen. If I said, do you want to quit your job and become a millionaire? I think every single person on earth can relate to that. They all want to be a millionaire, they want to quit their jobs. But then who do you attract? A bunch of lazy people, broke people, and people that are just dreaming. Instead, I personally like talking about problems that you only recognize or realize exist when you've put in a certain amount of effort into achieving that goal. I don't like talking about dreams. Which brings me to point number 3, talk about successful people problems. It's marketing 101. We're always taught to talk about pain points and desires. What you want to avoid is bringing up these vanilla general problems that anybody can relate to. Because again, that attracts a lot of bad quality leads, and it may attract some high quality leads, but now you're spending all this money on the bad ones, just having to sift through them, and then you get discouraged because you feel like you're only attracting bad leads. So to make sure they don't even enter your world, talk about specific problems that you don't even realize exist until you've hit a certain level or you've put in a certain amount of effort for a long time into reaching a certain goal. Have you ever had a job that you were extremely excited to start? You maybe did like a week of orientation and you were like, this is pretty cool, I could do this for a while. But it's not till months or years later where you start noticing how annoying some of these things are. I used to work in a hospital where I would mix the IVs for all the patients in the hospital. And there were certain drugs where we would have to show the pharmacist, hey, we're putting in 1 milliliter before I can actually squirt it in the bag. And that was fine at first. I was like, I totally get it. As I started to get better at my job and did it more and more, that part of the job always took longer because I couldn't continue doing my job, couldn't keep doing what I was doing until I showed the pharmacist. They laid their eyeballs on this 1 milliliter of syringe. And I get it, it's all good, they have to be careful, but it just made it so that it just threw a wrench in my workday. So that annoyed me. But I would never know that problem existed until I had been doing that for a long time. And nobody who hasn't done that job doesn't even know what I'm talking about. So you want to think of those types of specific nuanced problems that successful people have, or people who are trying to be successful have. Because the people who are trying hard are more dedicated and they're more determined to fix their problem, and they're more likely to pay you if you have the solution. The fourth thing is make sure that you have detailed explanations. When you put an ad in front of somebody, they're a stranger, they have no idea who you are. The quickest way to build trust with a complete stranger is being able to explain their problem better than they understand it themselves. When somebody proves that they know your situation so well, your automatic assumption is that they have some solution to it. And that's what you want your audience to think of you. This is literally how you stand out in a crowded market. While everyone else is calling out vague problems, hey, you're not making enough money, hey, you're not getting enough leads, you're vividly describing the problem in graphic detail. And humans learn way better through being told a story than being told what to do. Growing up, how many times have your parents told you to brush your teeth and you were like, I don't want to listen to you? We're innately ingrained with this resistance when being told what to do. And it was the same with me. Growing up, my parents were like, brush your teeth, brush your teeth, brush your teeth, brush your teeth. Sometimes I was like, I don't feel like brushing my teeth. And I was never motivated to. I just remember this one time where my friend's grandpa was sitting there telling us the story about all his root canals and his mouth surgeries. He would be like, yeah, I used to eat some of my favorite foods and I loved eating beef jerky, but it was so hard and I was always ripping on my teeth until I finally got a cavity one time. So they had to put a giant needle in my mouth, numb my face so I couldn't feel it, open my mouth up, drill a hole in my tooth, and then put in a filling. And then that filling would pop out and I'd do it again. I did that for like 5 times until finally they were too close to the nerve where they're like, we're gonna have to numb your face. We're gonna have to drill a giant hole. You're not gonna be able to feel your tooth anymore. And then after all that, his tooth ended up falling out and now he couldn't eat beef jerky anymore. He never told me not to eat beef jerky or to brush my teeth. He just told me the story, the step by step. And as I was following along, each detail got deeper and deeper in my mind. So then my conclusion that I came to on my own was, I'm gonna brush my teeth every single day. I don't want that to happen to me. That's why detailed explanations work better than just telling people what to do. The 5th thing is having a clear call to action. A call to action is what you want that person watching your ad to do as soon as they're done watching your ad. And here's the biggest thing. Don't assume that they know what to do. You want to make sure that they are using 0 brain cells. No brain power is needed for them to move forward. So if you're going to have a call to action, tell them step by step what to do. If I wanted them to watch a free training, click the link below, register for the free training, and watch that training immediately. I'm going to say those exact words and telling them each step. And as a bonus, if you want to get more people to convert, what you can do is have a visual of what the next steps that you're asking them to take will look like. The reason is us as humans fear the unknown. We want to know what's on the other side before we do it. And this is a micro ask, but the same concept still applies here. If you show them a visual of you clicking the button, what the landing page looks like, what the box looks like when they register, what the next page looks like when the video is playing, if they can see all that already, they can feel comfortable about moving forward, doing exactly that, and knowing exactly what to expect. Humans fear the unexpected. If you remove that, they're more likely to take action and convert more. Now, if you really want to know what makes people buy and the whole deep level psychology of that, check this video right here. If you're a coach, mentor, you like my philosophy and want to see if I can help you grow your business and increase your income, click the link in the description. I'll leave a link so that you can book a call with me. Don't forget to subscribe and I'll see you in the next video.